Okay.
'Cause he really loves guns too, and there's a lot in this movie, a lot of action going on.
Yeah.
I think maybe the percussion resonates with him too because it's so similar.
Yeah.
But the approach that I ended up taking, and it was a big collaboration, for all of us, was it's very driving percussion, and there's a lot of pulsating going on. It's very aggressive too, almost abrasive metallic sounds, some low brass in there. The strings are more of a propulsion. The strings are played very percussively as well to kind of, move it along. And it's very raw. And I think the reason why it's so raw and why it seemed to work so well instead of something sweeping and melodic is because the images in the movie are so raw and so gritty.
Yes.
And to kind of go into a fantasy world with kind of maybe sweeping melodies, which for one, I love to write that stuff, but it just didn't seem to work for this project. So we kind of toned it down and we made it more of a soundscape. And I was able to sneak a few melodies in there, which was a lot of fun too, and a few thematic elements. But it is more of like a feeling that you get than something where you're going to go to a concert and like this big, enormous melody pops out at you and you go home singing it.
Right, right. So he was seeking something that was kind of universal in nature, from a sound standpoint that wasn't connected to borders, that was borderless.
Right,
yeah.
Right. And it was also, he wanted this cohesion of where the synthetic sounds blended with the organic sounds and the orchestral instruments so well that there wasn't necessarily, there's some areas where you couldn't possibly tell the difference of what instrument is playing what, and, what is that sound? Where did that come from? So we were looking for new sounds that maybe people haven't heard much before either. It was a lot of experimenting.
Wow. Well, I'm really looking forward to the film, and I know that our listeners are as well. Well, let's talk about your background. I read a little piece that you really, I guess the world has to thank your sister for helping bring you into the music world. Is there any truth to that element?
I wonder if they misunderstood me a little bit, but it was because of my sister that I returned to playing piano.
Gotcha. Okay.
My sister is 4 years younger than me.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So when I was about in, I think, second, third grade, I started taking piano lessons, and they were teaching us, the classic, the classical music, Bach, Beethoven, as I was growing up, and then I started to lose interest. I think like any boy would. Like I wanted to be outside, playing around and climbing trees, and chasing animals and things like that. And then my sister started piano lessons, so I had kind of fallen away from it in grade school. And my sister kind of got me to revisit it because she started playing the piano, and I don't know, it rekindled something inside of me, like, yeah, I love this instrument. Why did I stop doing it? So I kind of begged my mom to start piano lessons again. And that's, of course, when my mom bought the upright piano in our house and said, okay, well, if we're going to get this piano for you guys, because these aren't cheap, then you're going to have to commit to staying in piano and taking lessons until you graduate from high school. And of course, a young kid's like, yeah, okay, whatever, Mom, sure.
Yeah,
and
right.
She stuck to it, She stuck to it, and I had to play all the way until I got to college. And of course, by that time, I was really enjoying creating my own, coming up with my own music than playing, the classics. But it was a little bit embarrassing at times. I'd get called out of, soccer practice or something to go to my piano lesson. The guys would kind of tease me a bit.
Right.
It worked out well in the end. So.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, we are on the phone with Ryan Amon. He is the composer for Elysium and quite a few film trailers as well, including he had involvement in The Watchmen and The Avengers. Talk about these trailers. What were the first film trailers that really got picked up for you, that you realized, wow, there's something here. There's something that can happen here?
Yeah, I do remember that moment. The first trailer that I had my music used in was the 7 Pounds trailer.
Oh, yeah.
The movie with Will Smith. And it was more of an emotional, kind of hopeful track that I had done for a library. And it was, within the first few months that I had started even writing trailer music. And it was the time I got to go to the cinema and sit down and didn't know it was going to come up. I knew that I had my music chosen for that trailer, but I hadn't seen it except for like an online clip. So I went to go see a movie because I go to movies all the time. I make a joke that it's my work, but really I just love going.
Yeah.
But I saw the trailer come up, and that's the first time I got to hear my music played in a cinema. And that was kind of a changing point in my career, too, because I knew that, okay, I'm definitely down the right path. This is really what I want to do. And it was really encouraging to get that first trailer because it helped give me confidence to keep moving forward.
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it was a great relief to me because when I was in college, I actually went to college for biology, something completely different, and I had to make a big decision to leave that degree and go to a music school instead. And of course, the parents aren't always happy with kids changing their career so drastically at that age. But it really helped to know that, yeah, I can do this.
Man, when life starts unfolding for you, like you've got happening now, I mean, you're a new dad, of 2 years, and you're going to be a dad again. A lot of changes happening in your life, and having this big addition with Elysium, more changes are probably around the bend even more for you. How are you handling all of this newfound change?
Yeah, it is. It's interesting because right now it's pretty quiet. We worked on that film. I wrote music probably for the last 2 years for that film, and it took up a lot of my time. And then post-production, we wrapped up the orchestra in January. So it's been shelved for a bit until it's coming out now in August. So I've had quite a bit of time off now. And I haven't had any offers. People don't know who I am, and they haven't heard Elysium really, and they don't know much about the film, except now when the trailers are coming out. So it's been this nice kind of quiet where I get to spend a lot of time with my family. And
That's
it just
awesome.
it reconfirms how important my family is for me. And not only like the inspiration that I get from them, but just I spent a while in Los Angeles. Now I live just out of D.C., just outside of D.C. And when I lived in L.A., I saw a lot of people that I knew and even some friends that it's such a temptation to put your career ahead of other things and to kind of push for it. But I believe that things happen for a reason, and I know that this Elysium film happened for whatever reason, and that to embrace it, but also to keep my priorities straight. And that's really important for me, is to keep my family definitely number one.
That's awesome.
And being a husband, being a father, I could have all the success in the world and do all the films in the world, but if I don't, I have that closeness with my family and that time to spend with them, then it really isn't worth it to me.
Yeah, if you don't have the success right there where it matters, nothing else matters.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. Well, we've got about 5 more minutes, Ryan. I really do appreciate you spending time talking to us today. I'd love to get your take on working with Mike Post. Now, that wasn't a typo, was it? That was correct. You did work with Mike Post?
Yeah, Mike likes to do something every year that's called the P. Carpenter Fellowship, which is he'll invite 1 or 2 new composers through a competition. We have to submit a song that we do, and then they choose 2 composers every year, sometimes more if there's entries that warrant it. And they bring us out to L.A., and they pay for our lodging and our meals, and we get to kind of shadow Mike for about 6 weeks to 2 months. And we get to watch how he works. We get to sit in a studio, and then he gives us a few chances to kind of do a mock score-up of some of his shows, like NYPD Blue or Law & Order.
Yeah.
And after watching him and how he does it and how he approaches the process, we get to kind of bring our own voice to it. And we get feedback and critique on how we score this particular character and how we approach the scene. And it was great. It was great working with Mike. He's such a great guy and so giving. I mean, he's such a famous person in the TV and film community, but he spends a lot of his time like helping young talent and developing our skills and kind of sending us out there and giving us a chance to also make connections. I remember he picked up the phone and made a few phone calls for me.
Wow.
To people like Snuffy Walden, who might be looking for an assistant. He's just that helpful with young composers. It was a great experience.
That's awesome, man. So I'd love for you to share some thoughts on what you look for in film when you go to watch films for the pure joy of it. Because you said earlier, hey, you love going to films. It's not just work. You enjoy going to them. What are some films you choose to go to? Are there certain genres, or do you just like to watch everything?
Yeah, I gravitate towards more to the historical films.
Okay.
I don't know why. It's just something, maybe because we can never really go back to the past. It's the only way of being able to feel like we're a part of that generation or that time in history. And some of my favorite, Lord of the Rings is one of my favorite films because the story, to me, between good and evil hits home.
Right.
Such a spiritual story and something we all, I think, relate to in our souls. But it's set, it is a fantasy, but it's almost like it could have existed somewhere. And I love movies that are, I like Gangs of New York. I thought was a great film.
Yeah.
The way that it was done. Movies like The Mission.
Okay.
Morricone did an amazing score, and I just love that film.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something about films that are in the past, I think, are the ones I gravitate towards the most. But I have to say my favorite film of all time is Jurassic Park.
Okay.
And I've watched that one so many times. I had the old VHS tape. I wore it out.
Wow.
And I think that's because of the story. There's something that I really relate to, a strong story in the characters, more so than maybe horror films or comedies. Horror films, in fact, scare the living daylights out of me. You probably won't see me going to many horror films because I can't sleep at night. Yeah,
awesome.
they keep me up too late at night all the time.
Yeah, so you're definitely not going to be showing your 2-year-old anything like Insidious or anything like that. So that's good to know.
No, probably not.
Yeah, good job, Dad. I'm proud of you, man. I'm proud of you. You're learning something. Well,
Right.
For your approach to just coming up with ideas, is there something that kind of drives you along when you're just kind of coming up with these ideas without any kind of background? How does that happen for you?
I think it's because of how I grew up and because of maybe my belief in my faith system. As a Christian, I think I draw something spiritual from it, and I try to create a mood that somehow isn't. I feel like it's not even coming from me, like it's coming from something greater than me that kind of just passes through me as like a vessel in a strange way.
Yeah.
So I try to draw from something spiritual, and I really try to write from someplace deep inside of me instead of making it cerebral and writing from theory.
So you're using this gift that God has given you and just kind of let it move through you. That's awesome.
Yeah, I feel like if I get in the way of it too much, I kind of mess it up.
Yeah,
so if I can step back and like get the ego out of there and kind of just let the music kind of go through, it seems to work out a lot better.
Yeah, and that's hard to do sometimes. I mean, sometimes we think, well, our ways are better than His ways. I mean, really,
it never seems to work that way.
It doesn't.
Does it?
It really doesn't. Sometimes I think that we sometimes can forget that if we don't catch ourselves, and that's just the humanity in us coming through. Well, Ryan, any final thoughts, any final comments, things you want to share with our listening audience?
I don't know. I'm so thankful for the opportunity that was given to me. And I hope it's a trend in Hollywood, too, where directors are willing to take more chances on people that, it might be riskier, but there's a whole new voice of people as artists. And not just being a composer, but any kind of artist. I think we're given a great responsibility and an opportunity to kind of have our own voice. Because otherwise there would be a clone of us, right? I mean, we're kind of unique in everything that we do, whatever job we have. So I would just, if I can encourage anybody, and I try to do this for myself, encourage myself, is to just find that voice that's ours and just kind of let it out there and let it shine, because we're pretty unique and there's no one else quite like us. So no one else can do what we can do.
That's awesome, man. That is a great thought to leave with everybody. I really appreciate it, Ryan. Ryan, any website or Twitter feed or Facebook place you want to send people if they want to find out more information about you?
Yeah, I do have a website. It's pretty new and simple, but it's www.ryanamon.com. So it's pretty simple.
Good deal.
And I do have a Facebook page as well. I don't know the exact site.
But they can find you on Facebook also.
Yeah,
Great.
They can find me on Facebook as well.
Great. Ryan Amon's been our guest here on Cinemascene this week. He is the composer for the new film Elysium, opening up on August 9th across the United States. Ryan, man, thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us today. I really, really appreciate it. And if you would hang on for just a quick second, let me wrap things up, and I'll be right back with you. To our listeners,
Okay, definitely. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks to our listeners for taking the time to spend with us as well. You can always check us out on Facebook as well. Just search for us at Cinemascene. You can email us, info@wgwg.org. And until next time, I'm Noel Manning for Cinemascene on 88.3 WGWG, online at wgwg.org. That's a wrap.
Hey everybody, I'm John Oates, and you're listening to The Range 88.3.